Um, got it. Okay.
Yeah, just saw that pop up.
Yeah, and then I just have to mute the Facebook one. That is the issue, or we get the feedback. Okay, so we've got live chat on. We are live on Zoom. And
Just saw that
yep.
pop up.
And so, and then I just have to, and you see that right there is where you have to pause it. Okay. So I don't want to pause us on there, but I do want to go to the group page. And we are now live and so excited. And here we are. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry it takes a second because we go from Zoom to Facebook and we just want to make sure everything is working well. I am Joe Massaro with Joe Massaro Ministries, but we are on today with my book club, Yahweh Sisterhood Book Club. And I am so excited because MN Stroh
Yes.
is with us. And it is someone that I have been connecting with for quite a few years now. We are both members of Writers Chat, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But let me just give a little bit of a bio, and then you can share a little bit about. Hold on a second. I am seeing something here. Okay, and here we go. All right, now that makes it easier for me. Okay, so MN Stroh is fueled by her love for storytelling and history. And if that is not the truth, she writes Christian historical fiction with an edge to inspire the downtrodden and outcasts through adventure-laden escapes, leading them back to their first love, as showcased in her debut series, Tale of the Clans. MN serves as Director of Communications for Serious Writer, Inc., affiliate Writers Chat, Director of Serious Writer Book Club, and a member of ACFW and Historical Novel Society's Interviews Administrative Team. So you can connect with her at MN Stroh, STROH, and you can see the name right there, and social media. And okay, so what an exciting time. And if you are listening to this, you're seeing it on YouTube or Facebook, please subscribe to the channel. I would so appreciate that. You're here and we're finally together. I just can't even begin to believe it.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Oh my gosh. So we have been friends for quite a few years, I think now. We see each other on Writers Chat, which is Facebook. Wonderful community of writers and authors. Maybe just share a little bit about that, and then we're going to go right into the interview about you.
Oh, sure. I was even trying to think about at what point you kind of started joining us at Writers Chat, because I've been on there since 2017. It's when I first signed on with Writers Chat as their Director of Communications, and kind of started getting pulled into a little bit more of the co-host duties. You know, everyone knows I'm a little bit reluctant there because I'm not the one who likes to be in the limelight, but it's fun and I enjoy the group, and it's just a wonderful community in Writers Chat, and they're about, you know, helping writers. It's a place by writers for writers, all about writers, you know, and we just enjoy one another, and we encourage one another in our individual writing journeys there.
We sure do, don't we? I think I was trying to think. I think I got on around 18 or 19. So somewhere in there. So I have learned so much, and I've interviewed a lot of the authors that are on there as well. Johnny Alexander being one of them, and so love her and her writing. And so we just learned so much together. But share a little bit about who you are, where you live, you know, a little bit about that, so people get a feel for, you know, that type of information about you. I always love to learn about where you are, and you have a great place where you're living.
Oh yeah, well, I am on what was originally my husband's family's ranch in Wyoming, just outside of Newcastle, which is in the northeastern part of the state. And so we're pretty close to the South Dakota border. But yeah, we are on a working cattle ranch. Currently, it actually has changed hands. My husband's family sold it to another rancher, and so he is working for that guy now. And we're blessed to be able to stay here and remain in the livelihood that we've grown up. Well, our kids have grown up with, and I've kind of adjusted too. I didn't originally start as a rancher's wife. Obviously, my family actually had background in coal mining, and my parents, had both done ranching in their younger years, but yeah, I was not raised in that. So it was a fun adjustment, marrying into the ranching life. But yeah, been after that, I've been in ministry as well. My husband and I were both involved in youth ministry after we left Bible college. We both went to Bible college together and did youth ministry for about 6 years. And during that transition, becoming parents and then me trying to learn the ropes of writing as well and become a published writer eventually. And so, yeah, a lot of life has happened.
Oh yes, I so get it. So now we're going to talk about the first book, and probably you can tell us about the second. But you have 4 books.
Mm-hmm.
4, and I when I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have 4 books coming out. One is already out.
Mm-hmm.
So just maybe give us a little bit of a brief idea of what they're about, and then we'll jump into the first book.
Okay, so Tale of the Clans is set in 10th century Ireland during the reign of what people would arguably consider one of the most infamous of their high kings, Brian Boru. And it kind of spans his lifetime, really. But the series as itself is not necessarily about him. He's kind of a background character in it. Instead, it's based around fictional characters that kind of represent all of the sides of the stories of the clans who affected the history of the time period. And so it's kind of this broad, sweeping epic of that I kind of say is stylized after kind of like old Irish hero tales and like the Icelandic sagas, because there's this blending of Scandinavian in there as well, since this was, but historians refer to this as the Viking era of Ireland, as they came in the 700s and raided and then eventually established port cities that build up and were integrated into the Irish culture. So there's this real rich blending of both Scandinavian and Irish culture during this time period, and still a bit of the conflict between the two as they're acclimating to one another. So it was a fun series to write.
I'm kind of looking to make sure that I'm not missing if anybody has a question. So excuse me if I look down a little bit, folks. I'm just checking it out to make sure. So in the one thing that I've learned in my own life as getting ready to launch my first book next year is that there's so much research that you must have done, because I know what I'm doing and I'm thinking about you. And I mean, people are fascinated about this. Every time I do an interview, they're like, tell us about the research and that journey. So I know that's a long journey for you, but
Yeah.
maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that these books, this series has been in the work for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And so that's over 20 years of research and an obsession. It really is an obsession of mine in Ireland. But the fun thing is that I didn't start out wanting to write something in the genre of historical fiction. My first book, Rise of Betrayal, actually started out as a fantasy novel, and I converted it to historical fiction. So in the process of writing out that fantasy novel and then realizing it just wasn't gelling, it wasn't going to work. And during that time, I was really getting into reading more Christian historical fiction, and I was immersed in the works of like Bodie Taney and Francine Rivers and
Yes.
some of those awesome authors like that. And the more I read their works, the more I was inspired that, why can't I write in historical fiction? Because I love it. I've loved history in the Middle Ages ever since I was a girl. And so I thought, well, is it possible that I could do that? And it's like God kind of put it on my heart to convert the story. I thought, wow, that's pretty ambitious to convert a work of fantasy to something of historical fiction. But he kept pushing me on that path. And so I did. And one of the things that I thought was, I need to kind of set it in a time period that keeps my interest so that I'm constantly inspired in the work. And I decided on the Middle Ages, and it was a kind of a toss-up between the Middle Ages in Germany or in Ireland, because I have, familial background in both, and I've always wanted to know about the history of both. But I couldn't fully decide at the time, and so I tossed it back and forth and finally settled on Ireland. And I did a broad research at first, just reading general books about Irish history and kind of trying to focus on ancient Ireland through the Middle Ages and Renaissance, and eventually came across Brian Boru and his lifetime, and it just clicked. Everything about that period fit into the realm of the story that I already had going, the themes and the plot that were already in development. And so I just began the conversion process. I began to learn everything I could about the culture, about the history, mostly through books, but I did start to get some connections with professors and people, different authors in Ireland, and a few in historical societies. And so I would chat back and forth between all of these people and get help with them via email most of the time, which was kind of hit and miss because I didn't actually have an internet connection of my own until about 2007. So this was, libraries and other family and friends' houses and stuff. And yeah, it was quite a process. But eventually
think about the fact that internet was not always there when you're going
Yes.
back and trying to do your research and all of that. So it certainly is so tremendous today, just to have the ability to do that, to even do what we're doing right now. I mean, it's just really incredible. So you have been on this journey for quite a while.
I have.
Yes. And I said this to you before, and I know I said it in the past, but I am so incredibly proud of you. Because one of the things that I think can happen is that as somebody who might want to write a story, whether it's one book or multiple books like you have, you can get discouraged. You can, we all do. You can put it down for a bit and then come back to it. But I just love the fact that you stayed the path. You stayed that journey that God brought you on. And it's absolutely incredible. So maybe you could tell us about the premise of the story of Man of Sorrows and so you kind of talked about, what sparked that idea. But just share a little bit about that if you can.
Oh, sure. Well, like you say, we all face that struggle as authors in those times where we just want to throw in the towel. And I've had so many, I've lost count. And actually, Man of Sorrows was hitting during one of those times. And I was in the process of trying to get some freelance edit work done on Rise of Betrayal. I had met my friend Brandy Bro, who from Writers Chat as well,
Yes.
back in 2007 when I joined our mutual writers group, Christian Writers Group International. And we met and she agreed to do the freelance editing work for Rise of Betrayal at that time. And we began the work, but she was also pregnant with her daughter, Jaylee, who ended up being born with a rare chromosome disorder. And so we had to take a break from freelance work. And that was in 2008, transitioning to 2009. And so in the downtime, I thought, well, I knew of different issues that Rise of Betrayal had that I needed to work on. And one of them was developing the antagonist. And so I needed to explore his life a little bit and try to figure out why he was doing the things he was doing and how that was impacting my characters. Mm-hmm. And so I began to explore his background by writing out this prequel novella. But then his extended married and family took over, and I began to fall for the story of Mare and Markin more so, and they stripped it away from Davin. And so then I began to write about them. And their story was kind of inspired by research in itself. I came across this story, the account of a nun who had left her holy orders to marry a man. I think he was just a farmer. And they were together for a time, and then the church convinced her that her decision to leave was sinful and that she needed to abandon her husband and go back to the abbey. And so she decided to do that, and her husband had followed her the whole way, begging her not to leave him. And she had professed over and over that their relationship was her tantamount to her committing adultery against God. And I thought the story was so tragic because it was so common for the time. I thought, what if I took that and twisted it a little and kind of put my own spin on it and created the story? And so Man of Sorrows unfolded. At the time, it was ecclesiastic, and it was just this prequel novella story to experiment and learn for the rest of the series. But as we transitioned into 2009, I discovered I was pregnant with my youngest son, and I through all my pregnancies dealt with HG, which is hyperemesis gravidarum, and it's an extreme morning sickness. Basically, the first 4.5 to 5 months, I was nearly bedridden and sick, and just so I couldn't do much of anything, and I had to set the book aside. And it was basically kind of just gathering digital dust on my computer for years. And then in 2019, when I had signed my contract with Olivia Kimball Press, they spoke with me on Zoom for the first time, and we were discussing the books. And then they posed it to me, would you be interested in writing a prequel novella for the series? And I laughed. Because I was like, well, I just happen to have one of those.
Happened.
So God was doing the work there, and I pulled it out and I revamped it, and it became Man of Sorrows. And yeah.
So Man of Sorrows is out.
It is.
Okay, so Rise of Betrayal is the second one.
Yes.
And that is coming out in the beginning of October somewhere, right?
Yeah, October 4th. It's coming up. It's next week.
So maybe talk a little bit about your launch team and what you're looking for that as well.
Well, this is kind of a unique launch since it's a rapid release. And so we have this ongoing launch has been going from September and will go all the way until the final book releases on December 6th. And so we're encouraging people to join the launch and opt into which books they would like to help read and spread the word about. And so I have a launch form handy online, and I can point people to the links for that. It's been up on my website and very easy to find there. And just encouraging people to help us spread the word about Tale of the Clans and join the clan, as I say.
Join the clan. I love that. So join the clan. Let me just say that it is so rewarding to be on a launch team. It really, really is. I encourage you to go to her website and learn more about it and join the clan. I don't know what else to say. It is so much fun. You get to meet other people. There's going to be big surprises coming up, which I'm not going to say. And
we have some prizes and grand prizes that I've been hinting at. I like Easter eggs. People will discover when they read my books that I hide little Easter eggs in my stories, and I'm doing the same with our launch, getting people to guess what the grand prizes are that are coming up that we'll be drawing for. And we have all sorts of fun. We play games, we interact and encourage one another and pray for one another. It's a great team to be a part of.
Yeah, so make sure you do that, everybody. Okay, so is there a character that you most closely identify with?
Oh, yes. Although it's difficult. It's kind of like, all authors, it's like asking them to choose between their children.
Yes.
My virtual children. But Markin was definitely the one that I identified the closest with, because I poured into him a lot of my own angst at, growing up as a young adult, and the faith struggles that he went through, going through that period of trying to understand the difference between this works-based salvation and grace, and how God kind of pulled him out of it and freed him from the chains of it. And so that was a personal struggle that I faced, and so I kind of imbued it into Markin.
Wow. Yeah, I can kind of associate with that as well. And I think a lot of people can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there something, I'm sure there's more, you've alluded to some of them, but is there anything that you might say, oh, I really learned this about myself or about whatever it may be when I'm writing this book or series of books?
Mara, she kind of took over as the focal character, and she's kind of like the opposite to Mark, and they kind of complement one another. And one of the things that Mara really brought out was the idea of being driven by faith and doing things even though you don't have all of the facts and the information that you think you need now. As Christians, we're so driven by the sense of apologetics and having to give an answer for our faith, having all of the answers when we're questioned. And Mara, she's one of those who's forced into this humble situation where she can't, everybody seems against her because of her youth, because of her upbringing, that she's so very simple and lacks all of these things. And she faces it even when talking with Mark and who she comes to love. And she has to realize that even in her seeming inadequacy, God uses her in a really miraculous way. And I think that constantly brought home into my own life that, even though I've come from very humble beginnings and am still, virtually unknown, God is still using this series, and he's been working through me and ministering to me through it. And through that, I'm seeing that he's ministering to other people. And it's just a tremendous blessing as I keep getting feedback from people who have read the series and just how it's impacting them already, these fictional stories that are touching people and kind of getting to those struggle points in their lives, and they're saying, yeah, I can relate to that, and that this encourages me to go on and press on and see what God has for me.
So true, so true, so true. I know that, I have my favorites. I have, the storyline is so beautifully done, and I know that it has spoken to my life, and I haven't finished the series yet. So I'm really excited to see, what's going to happen. And so make sure you get these books. I'm telling you that the novella, the first one, is incredible. And I'm about to start the second one, and I'm so excited for that. So you've talked about how your faith has impacted your life, and how it has, over the 20 years of writing this. When I say that, I'm still like, okay, that's it, but life gets in the way, does it not?
Yes, it does.
So,
Yeah, like you said, there's so much transition. I mean, I went from being, single to engaged to married to having kids and getting into ministry, and then falling out of ministry, and then trying to see where we fit into it, and then eventually homeschooling my kids. And that was a challenge in and of itself, trying to figure out how to be a writer and a homeschooling mother, and working on a ranch.
And on the side, you're a rancher, so you don't have much going on, really, seriously.
Yeah, you learn how to juggle things at the different seasons of your life, and it can prove really challenging. And there are also sorts of times where I questioned, is this where I'm supposed to go? Am I just being, crazy and delusional to try to write this series when all of this life is happening? Maybe I should just set it aside and wait. And there were years that I actually did set it aside and not touch it. And then I would come back to it again. And God would kind of inspire me to pick up the pen again and keep at it. And he would just, pave the path. I really learned to depend and wait on him, and to trust in the waiting, even though his timing is not mine. Because, after less than 20 years, people are like, nah, maybe I'm fooling myself. There's just so much to it. And yet there would just be one little carrot that would lead me on to keep taking that next step and that next step. And then I'd look back and be like, wow, well, look what you did. Yeah. God, you're amazing.
It's so true. I have, and that I've been working on my children's first book, which is a series for middle grade. And I have had, health issues and things that have happened over the last 3 or 4 years. And mine is finally going to be coming out, later next year. I'm still working on it and learning and training and writing. But I look back at when I first started, and the book would never have been what it's going to be today if I had just looked to publish something very quickly back there. But that God has you on a journey, and in his timing, because the book today is nothing like it was back there. Absolutely nothing. I mean, there's so many changes. The names are the same, but just so many different changes and things that I've learned. And so excited about, what God is doing in our lives. And it is his timing, is it not? Like you're saying, it's not in our timing at all. So I'm so grateful that we have a God who, what I always say, Lord, pray for, if people say, what can I pray for you? And I'm like, I want wisdom. I would like more humility, and help me to keep on the path that God has in my life until I see him face to face, and let it be for his glory, whatever it is that we're doing.
Oh yeah.
So,
Amen.
yeah, and that is what it's all about. And I can't say enough about, again, I'll say it about when you get together with authors and writers. I have to tell you that they have been just some of the greatest people that I have ever met in my life, encouraging, sharing information. What can I do to help? Just really great people. And so I'm so grateful for that. So, what advice would you give? I know we've talked a lot about this, but is there anything else that you might say to somebody who's like, oh, I have a story, I have something I'd like to write, or I just, I'm just starting, I'm just thinking about something. Is there anything else that you might want to share with them?
For sure. I think that one thing that I have always encouraged people, they say it over and over in writing circles, to have a teachable spirit and be willing to learn and be a lifelong learner. Don't ever feel that you've arrived as a writer. Everybody has that first starting step that they have to take, and to be teachable, to be willing to be humble and say, okay, I don't know this. Who can I go to? Who can help me? And when you find that person, help me,
Yeah.
bring me through it. But then to enjoy the journey, to really don't get so fixated on that end goal and say, I have to have this at this time, otherwise I'm a failure. I mean, sure, have goals. Goals are great, but don't set everything on that goal and that time frame and cut out the journey that God takes you on, because his timing is his own.
Yes.
You never know where you might need a little more journey to grow as a writer in order to bring about the works that you are meant to bring out. Whether it's the book of your heart or whether it's other ones along the way you never thought you were going to write,
Right.
they help shape all the others. So yeah, enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey. Oh boy, if that is, I have to tell you, there are times when I have not, but I have to say that it is a journey that is such a great experience. I have said this, I never planned on being a writer or an author. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be 72. Never ever thought I would be doing this in my lifetime. Never. And then there's people who have, writing stories from the time they were kids, and, so many different things like that. So I love to get that kind of input from people, because it is a journey, and it is one that, especially when God has called you to do it, man, it is just so rewarding.
Yeah.
And he is with you every step of the way.
Mhm.
So true, so true. So once you get through all of this, do you have any ideas or plans of what you might, look to do down the road?
Oh yeah, I have lots of ideas swirling in my head right now. I am trying to focus on the series and trying to finish it. There will be more books. I am fully intending to bring out more books in the series, and actually have 2 of them in the works right now.
Wow.
But yeah, I've been working through various planning stages. Obviously now, while we're in the middle of the launch, that's kind of taken the priority of my focus. And so I'm trying to help, share the books that are coming out in this rapid fire succession. It's so hard to even to mentally to transition from one book to the other, because it's like you have to get into the mindset of each one and remember the characters that you lived with during that period.
Sure.
in their story and be able to relay that to people, and then to move from that one to the next book. And so I've been hopping back and forth a lot, and I have to like, okay, get into the mode of this book now. Oh, now we're on Rise of Betrayal. We got to think about this one. And pretty soon I got to look forward to Lord of Vengeance. I'm like, oh my goodness. There's so, I have such a broad cast of characters and so many that are so fun. And that's another thing that I love too, that I hope that people will enjoy too, is I try to offer them this broad cast while still keeping it kind of focused enough so they don't get lost, but so that they can relate to someone. The readers will find there's at least someone, maybe several, that they just love and glom onto, and they'll see their stories develop, whether they're primary or secondary characters. I also tell people never underestimate some of those secondary characters, because they might pop up later as a focal character in the series.
True. So can you just share just a little bit? I know Rise of Betrayal is coming out next week. Is there one thing you might be able to share about, what's coming up in that book that, give us a little sneak peek about it?
Oh, sure. Well, you get a little bit of it too with this story, because, these are basically the Rise of Betrayal is kind of carrying on the generation after. These are like the parents in Man of Sorrows. And so you get to see their kids and what happens with them in Rise of Betrayal. So there's this ongoing theme that we're introduced to with Markin and his life. And he kind of passes that on to the next generation to tell them, that God bore this day before you, and together you bear it now. He's walking with you now in it. And so the characters really kind of come to know that in their own personal struggles that they face in Rise of Betrayal. The basic premise in Rise of Betrayal, we have the main character, Nessa, and she's a farmer's daughter, and she will face some tragic events that cause her to have to go into hiding. And she wants to avoid being discovered by the man whose brother is dead because of her. So it's an intense story of her as a young woman kind of coming of age and learning how to be an adult before her time, and then to deal with all of these struggles that are coming in, and realize that God has kind of walked her through this path and brought her to this place that she never would have imagined. And so, I look forward to people meeting Nessa and Gideon and all of the characters in Rise of Betrayal that they'll kind of get a little foreshadowing of and a taste of in Man of Sorrows.
Well, so again, make sure you connect with MN and go to her website. You can see it right above my head, mnstroh.com. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And join the launch team. Pick whatever book you want to do, as she said. And I'm telling you, you're in for a big treat at the end of this launch. There is going to be so much fun in December. So anything else you want to share or say before we close out? I know, we talked about how long it took and all of that.
I was trying to kind of contemplate in my mind anything that we've kind of gone over. There's so much.
I know. So the thing is that this is considered a medieval Christian romance series. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. So we want to get that in there too, because when I first heard about this, I was like, oh, I've never read anything like this. I'm kind of fascinated by it. So it's really so much fun and interesting.
It's kind of been turned into that area. It's definitely not completely romance, but there are strong romance threads in it, because I am a hopeless romantic. So there always has to be a romance thread in the stories I write, and I'm very into reading those ones. So there's always that tension, that subplot dynamic in there with the characters. And you see it in Man of Sorrows with Markin and Mara, and even with the secondary characters, Davin and Anya. And then in Rise of Betrayal, you'll see it with Nessa and eventually Gideon. And so can't say too much there. We're giving away.
Don't say too much. No, no. You want to get the book. You want to join the launch team, and so excited for you. And again, so incredibly proud of you just sticking to it and you going forward and following that journey and that path that God has put you on. And so there's 4 books, but there's going to be more and other projects. So we're hoping to work on a project together next year. I'm excited, and please be sure to connect with MN. And I just love that MN. I'm going to say that over and over. And she'd be so happy to hear from you. Join the launch team. I cannot say it enough. You are going to love it. If you've never been on one before, don't worry about it. Everything is spelled out for you. You know, it helps you figure out what you're going to do. It really doesn't take a lot of time. And you get to meet a lot of great people, and you get to meet MN. So that in itself is great. So thank you, everybody. Again, this is Joe Massaro with Joe Massaro Ministries and Yahweh Sisterhood Book Club. Go to my website and you can view all the videos. There's over 50 on there now. So I'm very excited. I've been interviewing for a long time. So if I had started recording when I could have, in those days, there was not, I couldn't record like this. Another thing, I'd probably have over 100 on there, but you know, enjoy them, connect with the authors. And I always like to say, please, please, please leave a review. There's nothing more rewarding for an author to see that someone has read their book and that they leave a review. And please make sure you do that as well for MN. And God bless you. When I end this, I won't see you again until I'll send out information to you. And thank you, everybody, again for joining us. Enjoy. We're into fall. I can't believe we're almost into October. It doesn't seem possible, but check her out and be sure to get the books and get on the launch team. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this time with you guys.
Good, good. All right, everybody. God bless and take care, and we'll see you soon. And